Hello, everybody. How are you? Jack Allen Willard here on a Saturday afternoon as we go live. Don't know when you are going to see this, but if you're watching live from anywhere in the world here on a Saturday afternoon, that's what time it is here in the good US of A. You're certainly invited to comment. Let me know where you're watching from, whether you are watching live or later. Let me know where you're watching from. All right. In our stream here, sometimes I have trouble finding the comments after the stream. I'm sure they're there, just a matter of me putting mind to matter. The name of our talk about several things, but the name of our talk here on Off the Cuff Ramblings, the left destroyed mental health care. I've been wanting to talk about this for a long time, and I promise you it won't be long because I got to go to church. I'll be headed out to church in about 45 minutes or less, so this is going to be a short off-the-cuff ramblings. Sometimes we do midnight ramblings. And sometimes we do recorded videos, and there's some great recorded videos here at the Virtual Church of the Disillusioned. So check them out. We've got a video that was live, Tom Jones in concert at Foxwoods. We tell you all about that. And we cover a variety of topics, including our most popular topic, Bob Joyce. The most recent video, reasons why Bob Joyce may and may not be Elvis. That continues to grow, as does Bob Joyce, Elvis evidence in rapid fire, where there's music at the beginning and the end. That's here as well. But I'm not speaking about Bob Joyce today. And I almost regret putting him in the title of the last Midnight Ramblings because I don't want to fool people, you know. I don't have anything to say. If I have anything further to say on the topic, I will. But I'm not going to try to hoodwink you, you know. Let's face it, there's a lot of people that do that here on YouTube. They put these titles inferring, in many cases, there's a few people that do this, that some huge star, for example, has passed away. And then when you start watching the video, you find out it's total jive. It was just bait and hook. Somebody accused me of that once. I forget, we were talking about videos that had been censored. And it was a very important topic to me because nobody wants their work censored. You know, you have to fight when that happens. And someone said, "Oh, there's no big news here. It was just bait and hook." But no, I don't come on attempting to bait and hook anybody. There's so many games here, and I see it with the preachers as well. You know, I talked about this, and I'm going to talk about our main topic in just a second, I promise, which is mental health in America, how it's been destroyed, and everybody's a victim because of it. But anyway, they come on and you know, their Bible teaching is to them, you know, absolutely right, and they will defend what they believe on every doctrine as if they couldn't be wrong. And then someone will come against what they're saying, usually someone who doesn't get anywhere near the hits that they get, and then the one who's been offended will do a video saying, "You're lying about what I said and this is why," and then the other guy will use that as an opportunity to come on and do another video apologizing for offending the speaker that he tore apart. It's, you know, the word of God was never meant to be a freaking contest. I don't like to use the word freaking when I use the word of God, so I'll correct that. But it is live, so you know. The word of God is from the very heart of God. It's not meant to be used as a platform to show your mega talent and to show why all the other preachers are wrong and you are right. And it's also not a place to come on and harangue Catholics and harangue people that live in the homosexual lifestyle. I'm not saying condone that. I'm not saying it sure isn't going to lead a gay person into the kingdom when you're tearing apart their lifestyle. It's not the right approach. But there's just let's face it, YouTube. You have to get a lot of hits. Well, first of all, you usually have to have more editing skills than I have, right? And you've got to come up with these provocative topics with facial expressions to go with them as to what you're saying. You know, um, only a very small amount of people will care about the topic. When you start going into Calvinism and topics like that, basically people that went to Bible college are really going to care about that. When the world is on fire, when the word is in flames, your view on eternal security, your view on pre-trib, mid-trib, or post-trib. I'm talking about the tribulation that's talked about in the book of Revelation. Oh, we have one watching right now. I know it's in the afternoon on a Saturday. People are doing things, but let me know where you're watching from, and we'll get some hits on this. But anyway, let's talk about mental health because that's our main topic. I've wanted to talk about this for a long time, been churning inside of me. Um, a number of decades ago, we saw a reaction to what was some horrible things. Way back in the 70s, Geraldo Rivera went into Willowbrook, not too far from me. I live in the Hudson Valley. Not too far from me was Brook, and he was able to sneak in there with a camera guy and show how, in many cases, and you got to use the word retarded here because we're talking about people that could be fully grown, but have the capabilities of like an infant. I don't know where they put those people. Maybe down in Rockland in this area. I don't know where those people are anymore because they can't go into a group home or something like that. So anyway, um, what happened is that there was a big reaction to that, and there should have been. The way they were treated, they weren't being taken care of, going to the bathroom on the floor. God knows what they gave them to eat, maybe being pushed aside by workers, because it's not an easy job in the mental health field. It's not an easy job. And if you're dealing with people that are severely handicapped, severely mentally handicapped too, it's not going to be an easy job. But anyway, that started things in motion with people that would consider themselves compassionate and thoughtful. And it began a change that would start to flourish into the 80s, the 90s. And by now, we have basically destroyed the mental health system. Back in the 70s, my mom had, I think it was diagnosed as schizophrenia. She was fine when she took her medications. But when she didn't take her medications, I was fairly young at the time. That's when I would see an immediate change. And my dad was either had already passed away. He came, I remember him being involved in the beginning in the 60s, but then he died in 1967. And I was living with my mom. And when she would stop taking her medication, she would start to get really bad. I remember her walking down the stairs of our home, and she had her eyes closed as she was walking down the stairs. And I said, "Mom, what are you doing?" And she said, "Oh, don't you know, I'm Betty Davis, and I'm going to play a blind woman in a movie, and I have to rehearse. I have to rehearse." Well, I don't think you close your eyes when you're playing a blind woman, but I wasn't going to give her the method because I knew we were in serious, serious trouble. All right. So eventually, what would happen is there was a famous doctor in this area. He was like the guy. His name was Dr. Herrera, Dr. Annabelle Herrera. And when you had to call him, you knew it was serious. And he would usually come with a couple of state troopers with him. And I remember several of the times when my mom stopped taking her medication, here came Dr. Herrera, and he would talk to her. Mrs. Villard, how are you feeling? And what have you. And she would be very nice. Mentally ill people have a trick that when they could have just said the most terrible things, threatened the most terrible things. But when mobile mental health comes, they calm down, and they are now playing a part in a movie. They are going to convince the mobile health person that nothing to see here, nothing to see here. So, all right. So, Dr. Annabelle Herrera would talk to my mom, and she'd be very sweet, and then he'd start to, I don't know, he had some key things he would ask her because he knew she was putting this on. And he said, I think we need to take you to the hospital because I had told him what was going on. And I was like 15, 16 years old. I told him what was going on, what she was doing. And he said, I think we need to go to the hospital. And so we would just regulate you and you'll be out in no time. And then her persona started to change. She had been nice to the state troopers. Hello, how are you? Very respectful. And then her persona started to change. And she became very resistant and reluctant. And I would see my mom eventually be carried out by state troopers screaming and yelling as they carried her into the cruiser. 2 weeks later, my mom was my mom again. Back then, first it was Thorazine, which was horrible, make you break out and everything. Then something Haldol came along, and I want to say something like Cinequine. Does that make sense? I don't know. But it was one of the earlier drugs. And after a few weeks, she was fine. She was my mom, ready to come back and be normal and what have you. But mentally ill people are famous for stopping taking their medication. They it's an act of rebellion, and it's an act of, oh, I feel fine, I don't need this, I never needed it, and so I'm going to stop taking it. Well, see, back in the 70s they had a system in place where you were going to have to toe the line, or you were going up to the state hospital, which, as I speak to you, is no longer in existence in this area, but it's where I actually do all my walking and a little bit of jogging. And there's a drug treatment center up there, there's a homeless shelter up there, there's a Cornell Cooperative Extension up there, and but all the buildings are there. Well, a few have been torn down, and many of them have been bought by the Chinese and the Koreans. They have a Korean dance studio up there, very nice. Anyway, um, there was a place called Tuckerman Hall. That was for the generally mentally ill people, maybe that wouldn't be there too long. And my mom was in there at least 3 or 4 times, as I can remember. I remember going up on the weekends and visiting my mom. The first time it happened, I was too young to stay alone, and I stayed with my half-sister down in Elmsford or White Plains, one of those two places. I forget where she was living. She lived in both at one time. So anyway, my mom was made well. But what has happened with mental health is that people, after Willowbrook, the horror of Willowbrook, people saw that there was definitely abuse in the system. It was just like mentally ill people were being mistreated. And severely retarded people, there's no other word for it, were being left in their own feces on the floor, and just, it was horrible. So there was an overcorrection. You know what happens when you're on the road and you see trouble and you overcorrect? You could end up flipping your car or flipping your 18-wheeler or whatever. You have to correct properly. But I was told not that many years ago, sometime around 2000, let's say 11, 12, that the approach to mental illness was destroyed by liberal leftist people who were thought themselves to be so compassionate, they took away all the rules and regulations. And when they did that, when they made it optional for you, it's your right not to take your medication. It's your right to say no to me. It's your right to say, I'm not going to school. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. When you gave them that right, they decided, I'm not following any of your rules. I'll do as I damn well please. And that began what is still a nightmare more than ever in this country, concerning mental illness. Mentally ill people would just say no, and I have seen this and experienced this. And when this happens, they are sentencing themselves to a lousy life. They are taking their potential. Their potential is being ruined. They're ruining it. And the people that are letting this happen are ruining their potential, and everybody becomes a victim, and it can be forever. The parents, how many times do you see this? You know, someone, and now sometimes even with medication, they're only going to go so far, but there are so many that are capable of so much more, and they go through this life never having a partner, never really experiencing human love, never experiencing the satisfaction of facing your fears, standing up and doing a job. This is how it is. This is how it is. And you can get stuck. A parent can get stuck in this until her last breath. They can become a caretaker to their last breath. And often they would have another spouse and another relationship and a whole other life, but their baggage is heavier than what they deal with at LaGuardia Airport. So everybody stays away, and at least in terms of a real relationship with the person. So we have group homes that led to group homes here in New York. We have them throughout the Hudson Valley, for example. Some of these homes, since don't run cheap, they buy them in really nice areas. Maybe it's a $350,000 home that maybe 6 or 7 clients are going to live in. 6 or 7 clients. You're basically warehousing them to their death. There's the idea, and there's a few treatment centers up where the state hospital used to be that indicate that they are building into a new future where someone is going to turn around who has serious mental health issues and become real capable and independent. The goal is independence, and that never ever happens. I mean, most times it never happens. It's a myth. It's a lie. They're either warehoused in group homes, or they create real serious problems and limitations for the relative that's their caretaker. And I don't see it. I don't see it getting any better. I don't see it getting any better. Um, when people are told that you either follow the rules or you're going to go to the institution till you can, and it's got to be they have to be treated well over there. They have to be treated well, absolutely, and compassionately. And also, while they're there, for those that are highly functional, there needs to be a program. Functional, there needs to be a program where they can learn skills and then set up with a job on the outside. And before you know it, they may have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and their whole life turns around. But when the left comes in and they think they're being compassionate, like the left seems to be screwing up the entire country at this point, to the point of socialist communism. When that happens, well, guess what? Everybody becomes a victim. Everybody becomes a victim. I have seen major turnarounds when people take their meds and are held accountable. When you have a 6 or 7 year old who's saying, I'm not going to school, I'm not doing this, I'll act up in school, you'll take me out, you watch, you'll take me out. When that's happening, you've got to stand up to it right away. And there are places you can put a child when they refuse to go to school and when they refuse to do these things. But you have to be willing to bear the pain. You can't get to a better place if you don't stand up to the challenge. That goes for the mentally ill person, and that goes for the caretaker who becomes an enabler, a personal enabler. The mentally ill person doesn't even have to um, make excuses, uh, because the enabler will do it for them. Oh no, you can't do that. You can't do that. But you view this person and you see incredible capabilities. But who wants to go out every day and work a job when you don't have to, right? Who wants to face their fear? Have you had fears? Have you went into a job and said, "Oh, what did I get myself into? I don't think I can handle this." Now, sometimes it's true. If you pick something stupid, like for me, I tried to work in an ice cream factory once. I was already doing radio part time, but my hours were limited. So I tried an ice cream factory. I'm not a factory person. It didn't work out. I was choosing poorly, but I've stayed in jobs for 19 years, 12 years, 8 years. I stayed because I knew I needed that paycheck. In terms of the 19-year job, I knew I was working towards a pension. I had young kids. I couldn't bail out. I couldn't, there was nobody to make excuses for me. I had to stand up and do it. So, if you're in that situation, you have to, if unless you want your whole life destroyed, unless you want the person who you're enabling to be destroyed, you have to stand up and say no, no, no. You're not a helpless little kitten. I believe in you. I believe in your talents. You have got to do this. And what happens to someone who's over 18 years old and has no health insurance? And you're in a state like Texas, New York, you'll be all right. But in a state like Texas, and I love Texas and I love Florida, God bless them. We'll talk about that in a second. Um, what happens is that they will put you in their county facility for a short time, but they can't wait to get you out of there because you're not paying. You're not paying, and you're going right back to the house that you came from, and that's not good for anybody. That's not good for anyone. Very often, stop taking the meds as soon as they get back. Oh, this is one of the tragedies. And if this is a situation you're in, don't be an enabler because it's a lifetime sentence. Florida, yeah, my favorite state, I think. Neck and neck with Maine anyway, but I don't want to be in Maine in January, but I definitely want to be in Florida in the summer. And it'll bounce back. Fort Myers, so devastated. It does seem like if you're going to have a mobile home, you got to be inland wherever your mobile home is. And even then in Florida, but the thing is about if you see the senior citizens are not so liked in Florida by the younger people because they don't want to invest in the community for obvious reasons. You can do the math, right? They don't want to invest too much. And if you're renting a mobile home down there or renting an apartment and you hear the big ones coming, and you live simply, you take your most precious possessions, you pack them away and off you go. You're going to have warning unless it's a tornado and it's going to be a hurricane. You pack your most precious possessions and you drive away, early so you don't get in too much of a clog of traffic. And then if there's something to come back to, there is. And if there isn't, there isn't. But it's not so easy when you're a homeowner down there. I would never be more than a renter in Florida, but it's such a special place, a free state with an incredible governor who may be running for president of the United States. There's talk that people don't want the drama of what we had before, even though some wonderful things were accomplished between 2016 and 2020, then destroyed in 19 months by a man who thinks that a dead congresswoman is sitting in the audience, and then to watch Jean Pierre try to explain it away. Oh my God! You know we don't need we don't need a professional liar as the spokesperson, someone that knows she's lying. She knows she's lying, but she just plows through it anyway. Jen Psaki, she's out of the job 20 minutes. Her whole persona has changed. Oh yeah, if this election is about Joe Biden, we're going to lose. Talking about the midterms. She's a lot more honest now. Don't be too honest or you lose your gig on MSNBC because they don't want you to be too honest over there. They want you to be more like Joy Reid, which is about as repugnant as you can get, I would say. And she's not the only one over there. Very disappointed in Nicole Wallace, who I believe claims to be a Christian, who used to be a Republican. How do you get in league with the devil because you don't like Donald Trump? How do you sign up to go with that crowd? Can somebody explain that to me? Because I will never, ever get it. So Florida, Still planning to go down to Port St. Lucie in late February. Hopefully, my destination is still standing in that area, and I love being there. I love spending time there. But then this year, I started to realize it was obnoxiously hot in New York. No, probably don't want to be there in the summer. I really kind of have nomad blood in me. I want to be a nomad. We know these people that have a huge mobile home. They sold their main house and they have a couple of fairly young kids and they just travel around. They do their business. They have like a business that they can run from their computer, and they travel around to various parts of the country. Sometimes they park in a special place and they fly because they have relatives in the UK and Europe. But they have a very interesting life. But I would be a discount nomad at best because I'd have my little Honda, and I'd be staying in Motel Sixes and things like that, and rest stops. And but I just keep thinking of what Anthony Bourdain said. He said, even if you have to sleep on the floor, travel, explore, find out what other people, how they live, how they eat, how they, their customs and what have you. And he did that for many, many years until depression eventually overwhelmed him. Apparently, a relationship with someone younger, and he wasn't thinking clearly. Wasn't thinking about his young daughter, certainly. Other than that, as I say, there's many topics here, many great videos at the Virtual Church of the Disillusioned. This will replay. This stream will replay. And sometimes we do midnight ramblings at East Coast time, midnight. And we talk about a variety of topics, and you are always welcome to come on and suggest what would you like to talk about, comments that you have, questions that you have, all that. My personal email is jackthefairguy@gmail.com. Jackthefairguy, FAIR, like you're going to the carnival, because I used to play carnivals um, while I was an assistant to someone who was the real talent. That we played fairs and festivals. JackTheFairGuy@gmail.com. All right. Well, I'm going to get ready to go to church because I want to go to mass. That'll really, that'll disqualify me with Mike Winger in those. But I'm at home in the Protestant church. I'm at home in the Catholic church because in the Catholic mass, it's wonderful if there's a born again priest actually hosting the mass, celebrating the mass. It's just a time to be. It's just me and Jesus at that time. I feel I'm going there to. It's not going to be wild praise songs and what have you. I love those too, but it's just going to be a quiet time to reflect, to beg God for forgiveness for my sins, and to focus on what's really important, because we're only here for a little while and then we're gone, and then we're gone. So it's important that we push ourselves to think spiritually and not berate ourselves and slap ourselves over the head when we fall short, because even these preachers that are coming on here and telling you, this is wrong and that is wrong, and why are Christians cohabitating and things like that, you know tell me about your experience with praising the Lord. Tell me 5 things that would embarrass you that you've done in the last year. Tell me that, if you're going to come on with that kind of an attitude, like, how dare they cohabitate, and let me tell you why the Catholics are garbage, and tell you this and that, and then MacArthur to come on and talking about the gifts of the Holy Spirit not being for today, and people who believe that may not even be saved. I'm not sure he said that, but ah, ah, just clanging cymbals so many of the times. And then there's some good preaching out there too. There's some good preaching. So Jack Allen Willett here. Thanks. This has been Off the Cuff Ramblings, and we'll talk to you again real soon.